Why a tongue to London what in the bottom? That language, that's how you see Margaret, Chugus and Batavichua, Dangala Gubachi, Chua, Nidin Chula, Niji Chatasha. What to the Sajitajaba, Damagon, so much at the trade in Batala, launches our Shinate with Chutan, then the Lucitation by Nimarga. That then the Lucitation by Zimbatala, then the Lucitation Zimbatala, Taikal and Hibbelamish Ku and Hibbelans Umu and Nije. That Hibbelans Umu the La Hibbelans Umu to the Marga, Lanchi, Najala Nabachi Badan. Tela Hibbelans Umu Sajini, Lanchi, Najala Nabachi Batala, Tene Ni. Jebusun je lan to son tajin du bichuji Jebusun je lan je gone rembar jinto tibi jusens sajini renwa ta jebusun je lan je rembar jinto tibi jusens de la sajini jebusun je gone tibi don kan yimbadan rembar de tibi jusens marba tene talani rembar de tibi jusens talani Jusengo to Gubani. What about the Marba?
The Tambo ni, the Ewa ni, Nipa Ewa ni.
What the Nazuma? Ulmate to the Jashina.
So, Moa language.
Gulmata Mombi.
Okay, the Gupa Kagare. Okay, so again, we will be looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment, which is a commentary, of course, on Lord Atisha's text, The Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. And it begins with an outline of the content to come. So there are 4 categories, and we've gone over this information extensively. The first category is the presentation of the greatness of the teaching's author. Here we have the liberation life story of Lord Atisha. And second, we have the greatness of the teaching itself. Here we find the greatnesses of the teaching, different categories for greatnesses. Then the great way to listen to and explain the teaching. In this category, how one should explain the teaching, how one should properly listen to the teaching. And then the 4th category is how to lead students in the actual instruction. So that's the category we're currently dealing with. And it begins with how to rely upon the teacher that is the root of the path. And then after that, it goes over what to do, the stages of the path that one trains in after having relied upon the teacher. First it begins with that how you actually rely upon it, and then the next section shows once one's relied upon the teacher, how one trains his or her mind in the stages. This is that next section. So in that category of training one's mind once one has relied upon the teacher, there are 2 categories. First, there is the exhortation to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. And then after that, we have the category that's called how to take advantage of a life, or the actual way to take advantage of life of leisure and opportunity. So again, beginning with the exhortation, and then it shows how to take how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. Now, within those categories, we have the categories under. Just give me one moment. I just want to go through this properly. Once we get to the stages of how the students train the minds once one has relied upon the teacher, again, we have the 2 categories: the exhortation to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity, and then how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. And in there, we have then categories of how to develop certain knowledge of a general presentation of the path, which is under the category of how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. And then the second category is the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. So there's some categories in there that sound very similar, so I apologize if it's confusing. But the order is the how to rely upon the teacher that is the root of the path is the category. and then we've gone through that. And then the second is the stages of the mind of how the students train the minds after one has relied upon the teacher. Under that heading, there's two categories: the exhortation to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity, and then how to take full advantage of leisure and opportunity. The exhortation has three categories, and we've gone through those. And then how to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity has two categories: how to develop certain knowledge of a general presentation of a path, and then the second category is the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. So the category of developing certain knowledge of a general presentation of the path has two categories, and we've gone through those. And then the actual way to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity is the section that we're on. And if we look at going back, the general, how developing certain knowledge of the general presentation of the path, there are two categories: how all teachings are included within the stage of the path for beings of three capacities, and then why students are led in these stages. And under that second category, there's purpose and reason. So there is a subcategory in the second category under the general presentation of the path that is the purpose and reason for leading students in those stages. So we've gone through that. So now we're on the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. Then Jibo Chungo Din Dan Chenmo, the name the Kason. The Lan Shi Lan the Ni Lasar. Then they Kason.
Lanji Najala Navajibata, Jibalan Sumuni, Lanji Najala Navajibatala, Lanji Najala Navaji said that Jibusung to Soro can do you others. Jibusung can you tend you Soro can do you others. Suji, Jibusung Jilanji, Jibusung Jilanji, Zembi. Tribute to Marba,
Gupa down.
Tribute to Ninja. That tell a knee, Jebuson's large and be good tribute to Santa Ninja. Jebusonji good tribute to that. Jebuson's going to tease it to that. Tribute to Saint Nimarba.
Lesser.
Tribute to Kayan, but not the rebutted that tribute to Saint. That Jusen the la, Jusen to go by Ninja. What do the chins are of Gubaka? No, we can't keep it in the tomb of the child court and what the Gison de Marba.
Lesser.
What about Sandro?
Lesser.
That Hebel and Zungo, the Jibuchungo, the Tomoyu, Lange Zimbala, Lojamba Tan, Jibundina Tomo Lange Zimbala, Lojamba, Jibichimi Lange Zimbala, Lojam, Son Revenue.
Lesser.
Son Jirwa.
Lesser.
That the Jibuchungo Lange Zimbala, Lojam Sudla, Chungo Samba Jean. Somebody gave Tela Lugatuba, Sewa, Sajison, or that's one. Chebichon, Mazuba, or the Corajan, do the Madame.
Lesson.
When you knew Jishana.
Okay. So, under that category of how to develop certain knowledge of the general presentation of the path, which is under the master heading of how to take full advantage of the life of leisure and opportunity, we have two categories. The first category is how all scriptures are included within this paths of three types of persons. So the pathways of beings of three capacities, how all the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, which are the Khensur, and the authentic Indian commentaries, the Tanjur, are included within the stages of the path for beings of three capacities. And then the second category deals with why students are led in these stages, in the trainings of three types of persons. So the purpose, the reason for leading students. And we went over that. And there are two categories, the purpose of leading students, and then why one guides those students. And then there's an actual purpose, reason and a purpose. And we went over that, and we gave the examples of the jeweler who's refining the jewel and washing it with a fish solution and all in a soft cloth, and this refining process that we spoke of when we went over that section. So we've completed that. And now we're in the section where we're dealing with the actual way to take full advantage of a life of leisure and opportunity. And then that begins with three categories. First, the training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of small capacity, training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of medium capacity, and training the mind in the stages of the path shared in common with beings of great capacity. So there are three categories that begin that section on that actual way to take full advantage of leisure and opportunity. And then that first section, the training the mind in the stages of the past shared in common with beings of small capacity, we'll find 3 categories as well. So we're going to start to have those categories, and then we'll get back to where we, translators note, we'll get back to where we left off previously. Sir. I think it's...
Jiden de yun de ba chwa jesu tempa samba da jiden shema jetan ju ro ni dudu samba saji ni marba.
I think that's going at cheat. So the training the mind in the stages of the past shared with persons of small capacity has 3 categories. The actual training of thought for a person of small capacity, the measure of an attitude of a person of small capacity, and clearing up misconceptions concerning the attitude of a person of small capacity. So that first category, the actual thought of training for a person of small capacity, has 2 categories. Developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of the next life or future lives, and relying on the means for achieving happiness in the next life. Those are the 2 categories under that first category, the actual training. And we're on page 144 in the English. If it's easier sometimes to follow the outline that way. So Nini Lapsa.
Jide shema de le jiba jide shema de ta tembas. Jide shema de ta tembas ngaso dendu lanse de do te somarba. Jondu tamagu chutilo so to yung sar.
Lesson. So the 2 categories, developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake or purpose of future lives, and then relying on the means for achieving happiness in the next life. So here, first we look at the word happiness. Happiness is referring to a higher realm rebirth. So the means for achieving happiness refer to the method for achieving rebirth in the higher realms, which then refers to the pathway which leads one to the higher realms. So the means of achieving happiness in the next life here, happiness is referring to the higher realms. The means referring to method, method referring to path, the pathway that leads to the higher realms. So in the next life, in future life. So this is that second category. Means here is referring to method, referring to path. And we know then that the pathway which leads to the higher realms are the practices. These are these practices: going for refuge to the 3 jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Ethics, which has an abandonment of the 10 non-virtuous activities, and acknowledging one's downfalls or non-virtues if one has engaged in them. So these are the pathways to the higher realms. Diksun.
Dan jiden shema de lo jiba de la jiden de yun de merimba chwa jesu tempa sambas jiden shema de lo jiba dan jiden shema chwa shema la dan me tenzon tunanya be sanlu de jangores jiden shema de lo jiba so de injirwa da tala jiden de yun merimba chwa jesu tempa sambas saji jije dan jiden shema Jetan ju roani je dudu sambas.
Okay.
Jide shema dendul jena.
Lesson.
Doa yuare nasul jen dunge wote imbare.
Lesson.
O saji jung doa.
So here we have this developing a state of mind that strives diligently for the sake of future lives. So then this category has 2 parts. So this state of mind that wishes to achieve rebirth in the higher realms. This is the state. It's a mental. Mentally, one aspires to achieve rebirth in the higher realms. So this is the state of mind that this is referring to. So there's 2 categories. So for the sake of future lives. So first category has 2 parts: the mindfulness of death and the contemplation that one will not remain long in this world. And then secondly, contemplating what will occur in your future life. And there are 2: the happiness or the suffering of the 2 types of beings. So here, happiness referring to the first type of being, the beings of the higher realms, the gods and the humans and demigods, and then the suffering referring to the other type of being, a dweller in the lower realms of cyclic existence of the hell-hungry ghost animals. So here, that's what this is referring to. So the first is mindfulness of death, and then a contemplation that one won't remain long in the world, and then contemplating the two possibilities of one's future life.
단지된 연도 말에 저와 저수 담바들 사지 제용도와 저와 담바 마고비 예미 공비 편 저와 담바 공비 루치다버지 제바 저와 담바 공비 추스 사지제 다 담바들 때는 가서 그래 사지 조딘데 사송아 다 저와 담바 공비 편들 사지 송딘데 사지 다 저와 담바 공비 추스야들 가송서 신로 다 다른 비지 가서 지바 what 가정의 손바드 때질로는 제가 검토도 말아.
Okay, Kandre.
저한테 마고미 예미 라리 주미 사지지로 어디 사지 이샤젠다는 사지 조지도 조지도 참아봐. 저 처음부터 마고나 되네 아니 추기 된다. 저 중문 주던 등기 주도서 상로 용 말했어. 되네 저와 잡아도 마구나 되네 좋아하시면 되니 상을 지금 말했어. 아니 단지기 냐부 공부 말했어 말봐. 어떤 지금 조시에 맞아. 어디 차로 다 저와 잡아 공기나 편집을 편집 편송 수바 다지 주고 안에 가래 로두가바 송도 말봐. 어디 차 말봐.
So the next section, the mindfulness of death, the contemplation that you will not remain long in this world, has four categories. The first category is the fault of not cultivating mindfulness of death. The second, the benefits of such cultivation. The third, the kind of mindfulness of death that you should cultivate or develop. And then the fourth, how one cultivates this mindfulness of death. So the first category, we find one section. But we went over the 6 specific points that are made in that section. So we've already gone over that. We went over, when we're looking at the faults of not contemplating the mindfulness of death, we find that then one won't think about even engaging in the practices of small, medium, and great capacity, that one won't apply an antidote to the grasping at permanence, so one won't be focused on one's next life if there isn't this mindfulness of death. So these are among the 6 that we pointed out. So there were 6 points that were made. So we've already gone over that. And then the next section deals with the benefits of such cultivation. And in that section, there were 3 points that were made. First, the benefits of such cultivation. First is the great meaning. So here it's meaningful. So that's the first one, the great meaning. Or second, or great reason. Or it's really don chewa, the great meaning. Second, the door to all excellence. So that's the second benefit of the cultivation of mindfulness of death, that it's the door or the gateway into all excellence or all that is good, all that is virtue. And then the third category is dispelling misconceptions or getting rid of wrong ideas or mistaken ideas. So these are 3 categories that we've gone over. And then the third is the kind of mindfulness of death that you should develop. We've gone over that a little bit. And then the fourth category of how to cultivate mindfulness of death. So we're going to be looking at those points now. Because we've gone over the 6 points and the 3 points and the a cursory glance at the kind of mindfulness of death. So we'll be looking at that and then focusing on how to cultivate this mindfulness of death.
저와때마 마고비 예미 고비 편한데 송송마스 근데 저와때마도 가래서 공부하래서 로칸데지 그래서 집에이나 와도 공부 수치에도 말봐 어들 칸이 용거래서 말봐 좀 종의 죄단 등기 죄단 안에 된류랑다 타비랑다 되는 게 내수 마시바지 되네 소소 방을 잡아요 아래 조벌을 잡아요 아래 아니 감바다 어자 도와도서 차바 시초에 병원기 어당하셔서나 도서도 된다 그러냐베 잡아지 제거로 어디 저한테 공수 때 말했어 처음부터 공사 대공주요 말이스 다때는 콜 kuju니 콜 주주니 너는 밥이래 뭐 너는 군주 밥이래 와니데 콜 kuju니 말이야 콜 kujo 군주다 반저 동에데 콜 주jo 네 라지데 네 대봉고데 what took ne to the shene o danga shesuna an ne dinu lang do yo mare tabi lang do yo mare an tiba chemi lang lo jo yo mare an nga shesuna ne so chi gre an diba mo sa sa dibi je bote le don yo mo be je bote ne so jin do nge yung gres what ne mata ba gong su do what ne ji gong gres what is mo do mo de.
So the third category, the kind of mindfulness of death that you should develop is thinking about the faults of not cultivating the mindfulness of death and thinking about the benefits of such cultivation. So how does one do so? What kind of mindfulness of death is this? What it is not is thinking about the things of this life, thinking about one's parents, one's friends, one's house, one's items, one's enjoyments, and becoming fearful of losing those things because one is going to die. So this is not the appropriate kind of mindfulness of death that one should have. One should be focusing on the cause and effect relationship that we find in the four noble truths, or the four superior truths. We find two cause and effect relationships within that. We find the first cause and effect relationship of the truth of suffering and the truth of origin that shows how one is bound to cyclic existence. And then we find the cause and effect relationship that the second two truths have among the four, and that is the truth of second set, rather, the truth of cessation, and then the superior truth of path. So here, these two show how one is unbound from cyclic existence or freed from cyclic existence. So understanding the nature of the four truths and understanding that in dependence upon one's karma and afflictions, which are origin, one experiences suffering. So recognizing the nature of action and result, and realizing that non-virtuous activities lead to the suffering of the lower realms, and virtuous activities lead to happiness of the higher realms. So here, the kind of mindfulness of death that's cultivated is in relation to an understanding of the nature of the four superior truths. An understanding of the two cause and effect relationships that are found within those four superior truths. So the mindfulness of death is coupled with that understanding, and then it propels one into this wish for rebirth into the higher realms in future life, or in the small scope, or wishing for liberation in the medium scope. So wishing to have that sort of happiness, developing high status or certain goodness, and then ultimately Buddhahood. So the kind of mindfulness of death that one should develop is related to the Four Noble Truths, and then it propels one into those different types of pathways that lead to happiness. And this is the kind of mindfulness to develop, not the one focused on this life and the things that one owns and what one could lose and what one's loved ones will be what loved ones one will be separated from. This is not the mindfulness of death that should be cultivated, because this is attachment. Dixon.
What the call a kuju to what the sun down the chomata never my baje, and chicken as you might have in the chomata, Shesuna, and the Napamata tender, Trubuna tender, Kambata tender, what the Kisat on the tender, what the Shinan on Petua Maris, just as she did the cigarettes, Jetta and Jet let on your mom, Jewatanji cigarettes. Ko bingi chuni res marba ma jedum ba de mei chuni re chu tu de ba de chu chuni res chu le chuni re yours jesa shinji de la shwa de bingi chuni res ka tuwa yo ma res de
Can't stop.
an chu ge ne chu de she ne de shina je ba ina an de ngen ge ju ka re yime de ngen ge ju yin bu ka re yime 돈이 거야 난주고 상바 거야 어떤들 때네 안 등에 주도 까네 시갈 못 잡아 용거래 가와 용거래스 어떻게 말봐 모두 통글 못 정. 지로
So, so we find, so at the beginning, we find impermanence to be this one thing from before that just leading in, I just left out, impermanence to be the beginning of this pathway, this entrance, this mindfulness of death and impermanence. So we recognize that our house, our enjoyments, our loved ones, our parents, our friends, all of these things we will be separated from, and we cannot do anything. They can't do anything to help us at the time of death, and we cannot bring them with us to our future existence. So once one begins to have an understanding of the nature of the impermanence and death, then this fear subsides, because when one understands the nature of a being, then one will know that beings die. Kansaks die. That's the nature. Fire is hot, fire burns, beings die, persons die. So that is the nature of a person. So when one recognizes what one's nature is, then this is a freeing experience from the type of fear that would occur that feels more exclusive and is concerned about one's things, because one then recognizes this is the nature, and then along that understanding of it being the nature of a being that one dies, one recognizes the connection between one's non-virtuous activities and suffering and one's virtuous activities and happiness. And since this death just can't just be stopped, then one doesn't become fearful, because it can't be stopped. Nothing can be done necessarily about this death that's coming. So in the meantime, we should be scared. We should not be scared that we're going to die if we are engaging in the practices which will lead us out of out of suffering altogether. So we recognize that it is the karma. If we have karma and afflictions, then we necessarily will have a next life. We will have to die. So we can't stop that if we have karma and afflictions. But what we can do is look at what the causes of suffering are, look at what the causes of happiness are, apply the antidotes to the negativities that we engage in, meditate upon emptiness, and apply that as an antidote, and develop renunciation, nejung, a desire to definitely emerge from this process. And this is done by first understanding the nature of this being, and that is, it begins with impermanence. And then in this specific case, the impermanence of a being is the mindfulness of death, because that is a being's impermanence, that he or she will die.
Then
we have in this section, Rinpoche wanted me to quote from the Jerab, from the Jataka Mala, the Garland of Birth Stories. There we find a quote. It says, "Though you hold fast, you cannot stay. What benefit is there in being frightened and scared of what cannot be changed? Thus, when you analyze the nature of the world, humans are regretful at death because they have sinned and have not brought forth virtuous actions. They worry about sufferings to come in future lives, and fear of dying clouds their minds. However, I do not know of anything I have done that would make me more regretful, and that would make me regretful." Let me do that again. This is an important stanza. "However, I do not know of anything I have done that would make me regretful, and I have made myself accustomed to virtuous actions. Why should anyone who abides in the teaching fear death?" So here it's stating that once one knows the nature of a being, why should this fear be present? So this is from the Jataka Mala, the Garland of Birth Stories. Translators note the previous lives of Shakyamuni Buddha as he was a Buddhist bodhisattva on the path.
what that Jeremy what the Mamuson about that Susan was on that engine or the and Kaza Lumbo Marga. Lumbo with Jero Susban Sonjas, then Jijabal and the Sonjas, what the angel to.
So then if we ask, where's the source? Lama Tsongkhapa states all of this information. Where's the source for this material? Then that's why Lama Tsongkhapa chooses the two sources from that we would find in the authentic Indian commentaries in the Tanjir section of the collection of works that we have here. And first we would find the quote from the Jataka Mala, which was written by Lopum Pao, known as Arya Shura. And also known as Miti Dayan, but Arya Shura is what we usually write in English. It's a Sanskrit word. And then 400 verses by Lord Aryadeva, Master Aryadeva. So Lama Tsongkhapa quotes these two sources of the Indian masters from the Tanjir to validate these pronouncements.
So
it's similar to just studying the pronouncements of Lord Buddha and the authentic Indian commentaries directly, no? These are our class books. So we will arrive at all of them, something like that. It was almost, we will arrive at all of them, or we will see them all.
Then and Kanju Tenju Chu Junka London do yours. London is what Jeremy Jagoro. Kanju Tenju Chu Junka the
So just like all of the waters of the world, the mountains and so forth, eventually end up in the ocean. The land for the path to enlightenment is like a great ocean that contains all of the pronouncements of Lord Buddha as well as the authentic Indian commentaries. So that's why Geshe Rinpoche, Lama Tsongkhapa, compares the Tisha's land for the path to enlightenment to an ocean because it contains and summarizes all of these great works of the authentic Indian masters, again, and the pronouncements of Lord Buddha.
Kanla Chusu Moronwa, Jishi Dawa Shebayi, Tilla Pampa Chishus, Chukinesu Mashebaji, and then Pama the Tendagre, Bija the Tendagre, Chukuna Tendagre, Nechala the Tendagre, Chaba Shishi Wonki, Shinalane, Pentu Maris, when the Chewakan to Maris, let the Nomo Chita Shinchi de la Chendagres, the Sijing Chunides, Mechatumba, Mejuni. Chutudno Chuchi so what things are Marva. Tell up Hamba Chishus, what about to Germachiki, Chortan the Tenju Maris. That kind of thing with two matter in Samarva. Theatre, Jine Chunila Tana, Mana Debaship in Jobanjurus. That quality generate the quality generate, Chevichungu in London, Dingle London, Tum, what the Sukna what done and Gawad Mamusayo Mare, Deba Mamusayo, Shenangang as one gene, Dungan Yungre, some Shenat Gumbaina, and a couture in as it shed du, and a debuggy near Bote, Tony Goya, and then I do some Gualas over the Selatene, and the Chivat Katures, Shakal Mataba Yungres, Gabi Yungres, the Gene Chuni Latana, Mana Deba Ship in Jobanjuros, Gil Le Jang, Leba Yumaje. Shimitsala Dungan to Chawaju, GB, Mobanjoros, what the niggas on Chuginas with Shena with the Chamataba to Gongures, Kanle Dagi in and Jonjova, Tani Dagi, Sheba Yumade, Gabi Lejan, Rado, Da Kanle Dagi in and German Joros, Tessumarva. Tangas Joa Toma Mabaris, Joa Toma Maban Tatibato, Magijudan, Samangal so Mamunga Sayores, the Zudunga Juris, the Zungasu Jango Maris, and then Azuka one Sheo Mare, the Majiba in Susan, and then Gasmol Chen Dungan University, Chow Mataba the Jambaina, and Dungan Jo, and the Tony Goya, Tingens Goya, Sujin Goya, what the Sulatene, and Joa Katu with some Marbe. Jojowa, Tani Daki, Sheba Yumare, Kabi, Lejan, Rado Kumbashe, Chula Nena, Chesu Shijis, Chula Nena, Kabi, Lejan, Rado Kumbashe, Dakasa. Takabi Chu, Chibuchungu Chu, Dendri Lang, Tabi Lang, Tuzulu, Kumbaya Shagina, Chi said, Shigua Yomaris, Marbe.
Less so.
Chipsushijis, Shigua. Chubara, you know, Shikalama Gabi Yungres. What that Dangashan Jigure, Luyabi Yungres, somebody, Gabi Waris. Dina, Segama, Dagmarisita. Tamajina, Joba Yungaris, Dan Digres, Danga, Kaju Junior Jeba, Tashan and Digres on Joba Yumaris. So what the Yungers want is that?
Chu Nyamlan Che Sun De and Sun San, the Jewa Shema Di Sung in Shigamari.
Okay, what is it?
Okay. So now we're just going to give a Di Sun Rinpoche.
What the Jiro del Hijaku?
Less. So now looking at the garland of birth stories, the Jataka Mala, and we're going to go through it stanza by stanza. Though you hold fast, you cannot stay. What benefit is there in being frightened and scared of what cannot be changed? So here, what it says, what benefit is there in being frightened and scared? We begin to think of the things that we're going to miss when we think about death. We think about our parents, we think about our friends, we think about our house, our car, our enjoyments, all of our things. And this is an attachment that brings forth this fear. But here, if one recognizes that it is the nature of a being to die, that it is because one has karma and afflictions that he or she will necessarily die, in the same way that if there is fire, it will necessarily burn you. It's the nature of fire to be hot and burn, just as it's the nature of a being who has karma and afflictions is to die. So here, it says, what benefit is there in being frightened of scared of what cannot be changed? It is our nature to die. That can't be changed if we have karma and afflictions. So it says, thus, when you analyze the nature of the world, the nature of cause and effect, first, the cause and effect relationship, we find the first two noble truths of suffering and origin, which shows one how one is bound to cyclic existence, and the two cause and effect relationships between the last two truths of cessation and path, that shows how one is unbound from cyclic existence. So when one recognizes the nature of the world, which is referring to this, the nature of things, the impermanence of things, the nature of a being is to die. When we look at impermanence relative to a being, it's the coarse impermanence is referring to death itself. So once one recognizes this nature, then one knows it's going to happen no matter what. So then it says that thus when you analyze the nature of the world, humans are regretful of death because they have sinned. So once one analyzes how the experience of suffering is generated and how the experience of happiness is generated, one sees that happiness is dependent upon virtuous activities, and non-virtuous activities give rise to unhappiness. And then one recognizes that we have engaged in much more non-virtuous activity and are more accustomed to non-virtuous activity than with virtuous activity, and that since beginningless time, since beginningless rebirth, we have engaged in non-virtuous activity that will give rise to, if not purified, the experience of suffering in the lower realms, and an experience of suffering generally speaking. So here it says, humans are regretful at death because they have sinned and have not brought forth virtuous actions. They worry about sufferings to come in future lives, and the fear of dying clouds their minds. So as a result of not, it says they have not brought forth virtuous actions. They have not engaged in the practices shared in common with beings of small capacity, the practices shared in common with beings of medium capacity, the practice of beings of great capacity. They haven't meditated on impermanence of death and emptiness and renunciation, the desire to definitely emerge. So they haven't brought forth this effort and engaged in these practices and haven't understood the nature of things. It says, thus, when you analyze the nature of the world, humans are regretful of death because they have sinned and have not brought forth virtuous actions. So then it says the fear of dying clouds the mind because of this, because of the underutilization of this basis that can allow one to not have to experience death again. From this basis, one can, at its greatest level, take one to the state of omniscience or complete Buddhahood, at a medium level to liberation or nirvana, and at a lower level, at least to the happiness of the higher realms. So these are all possible in dependence upon virtuous actions from this basis. So here, the regret comes from not using this basis for what it can do, which is stop death if one gets rid of the karma and afflictions that will certainly bring it on. And then the next it says, however, I do not know of anything I have done that would make me regretful, and I have made myself accustomed to virtuous actions. Why should anyone who abides in the teaching fear death? So since beginningless time, one has engaged in non-virtuous activities, the 10 non-virtuous activities, the 5 heinous crimes. These are necessarily the causes of suffering and will give rise to suffering. But if one accustoms oneself to virtue, which is the opposite of those heinous crimes and of the opposite of the 10 non-virtuous activities, and saturates one's mind and familiarizes it with impermanence and emptiness and just other virtuous things, such as the pathways of the small, medium, and great scope, then there is no fear. There's no reason to be scared. One will be happy or joyful at the time of death because there will be nothing bad to look forward to, because one has accustomed him or herself to the causes of the experience of the next happiness, on whatever level of happiness that is in degree dependent upon the teaching. So here, that's what this means. It says, why should anyone who abides in the teaching fear death? This is referring to if one has utilized this basis to bring forth virtuous actions, there's nothing to fear at the time of death. So this is from the Jirab.
Kala ngaba yojo bas te nga chigre nya mata ba sanlu sulu yoba ina kala yojo ba te ne ji de shina yo ken gaza te ne chi ji ba de pombi she de pombi she ne chi de ga yi de chi de pombi she te ne dendu la tabi la sanji kombu lo abi chege ina chedala kala jis Lama Chewalin Jiga Mare, Gabu Yungre, and Dina Trago Mare, Tamajina, Juba Yungmar, what the Nolan do some.
So then from Arya Deva's 400 verses, we find a much more condensed statement that says, those who think with certainty, I will die, give up fear. Therefore, how could they fear even the Lord of Death? So those who have this idea that, oh, I will die, I understand this is the nature of things, and engage in the paths, the pathways which lead to the higher realms, which are the pathways should come with beings of small capacity, the pathways which lead to nirvana or liberation, which are the pathways should come with beings of medium capacity, or the pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood, omniscience, the pathways for beings of great capacity. So here it says, how could they even fear they fear even the Lord of Death? So at the greatest level, there is one will the Chenmo din chungo this that's self you want.
No, is a matter of Karachero, the Rabunda in summer, no videos of Dan Cho, Hansen was Chowmatabason, you can the Not Shigri Nabishino, you can she not Sulu by Ina, Kalang about YouTube House, nga shigre nya be sang mata ba de sang lu de gaza sol yo ba yin ya bin sol yo ba yin ya yo ju bas dene cho mata ge de ge bon bi sher den ru la tabi la sang ju gong bong lo jong je gi na ni shiga la me ji ge ma res kalan ji ji ge ma res ji ge ma res
Okay.
and the che ge ma res
Okay.
me ju ba yung go le
Okay. So here, the Arya Deva stanzas really condense. This is the meaning of the Jerup, the Jataka Mala. So I might repeat some things I just said. I just want to make sure I have the accuracy of translation here. So those who think with certainty, I will not die, give up fear. Therefore, how could they even fear the Lord of Death? So if someone has this understanding of the nature of a being is that I will die, that there is certainly this understanding or familiarity with this impermanence and death, then this motivates him or her to engage in the practices of the pathways. The pathways would lead to the higher realms, the pathways which lead to liberation, and the pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood. So by recognizing that one will die and then acting appropriately based on that reality causes one to not have fear. It says, even of the Lord of Death. So there is no fear because one knows the relationship between virtue and non-virtue and so forth, and doesn't have that fear because one has utilized one's basis for something of meaning.
Sanlu de Kala Yoba Ina, being Sula Yoba Ina, Sula Yoba Ina, Yojubas, Yokin Te, Chi Jiba the Pombi Sheto, Dendri Lan, Tabi Lan, Sanji Gomutu Lan, Lojon Jena, Kanji Jigamares, Gabu Yungres, Tragumare, Toba Yungmares, what then Majiba Ina, then Majiba Jiba the Pombi Shet, Dendri Lan Lasuba to Lojon Majiba Ina. Then Pentu Maris, Chesa Shinjitla, and Shenegris, Katu Maris, Dama, and Gerald in Jabun Tabu Qual, Dulan
Shenang Katugumar, Shewa Katugumar. Gang is in a Tarpa Yuna, then Shewa Kagdu.
Not sugar in Yabasano, the Shenasol Yobaina, Gaza the Yukente, and the Jaga Naji doing at Pombisheto, then do long, Tabi long, the Nyalajena, Shagalam the Jigmare, Gabu Yungre, Tragumare, Toba Yungwares, then the Majena, Katu, Mataman Dubbing Zamar. Just as she is Chenrezig, what the Dubbing is.
So those who think with certainty I will die, give up fear. Therefore, how could they even fear the Lord of Death? So those who understand the nature of a being is that he or she will certainly die, because there are karma and afflictions, understand the nature of that, of death, and know that by engaging in the practices of the pathways which lead to the higher realms, the pathways which lead to liberation, and the pathways which lead to complete Buddhahood, one is able to not have any fear whatsoever, because the basis which will die has been utilized and for the purpose of eradicating the fear. And here, it could be joyful at the time of death because one has done everything he or she can to eventually end death altogether, or end the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. I forgot this from before. The suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death are brought about by the karma and the afflictions. So one recognizes that he or she is engaged in pathways which serve as opponents to those and has no fear because of the utilization of the basis. Ngamange de dets jason ne lasar. And the drew ngatsu sujana shege nasa do nasa then she pentogama
she Nasa the bomb bisheto, Gabisheto Mesa, then the Toshijina, and the Shigamaru.
Okay. So it's very similar to the example of if someone were to be bit by a venomous snake. One is bit by a venomous snake, the venom is poisonous, and one has fear that he or she can be killed or become sick. But if there's a serum right there, and there's an antidote, then there is no fear if there's been a snake bite, because one knows that one can just, with an injection, apply a direct antidote and there won't be any consequence. So this is very similar. This is an example that's similar to this, why there is no fear, because in the case of the snake bite, the person knows they have the serum right there, and then it can absolutely be applied, and then it will eradicate the poison, or it'll make it so the poison doesn't work.
So this
is what Lama Tsongkhapa means, and this is what is the meaning of Lama Tsongkhapa's words, and why he chooses these quotes from the Garland of Birth Stories and the Aryadeva's 400 verses to support the content.
And the son is in Nabaina, and the swim have a got a door of Mandubajina, Nasa Nyan did Nagrota, and the Mabakadachi, and the Koja, the Message in Janudo.
So if someone has a toothache and has a tooth infection, the tooth infection itself will hurt unless one goes and takes care of it. So just the hurting isn't going to make it leave. It's necessary to go to the dentist and to have it diagnosed and taken care of, and then medicine given. And then the pain is eradicated by applying an antidote. So it's very similar to this example also, that there is a way to get rid of the tooth pain by going to the dentist and taking the medicine. So there isn't anything to fear, and so it's another example. Rinpoche, the Zhedang. Okay. So we're going to take a short break. Okay. Sipa dubis, and Mandeva, Yella Chapa, Kamala Chapa, what the Kalatan, what was the Chapa Dunhuris, Dubi, Madaba, what the Dunhuris, Tamalia Sonson, Dushing on Chuduba, Madabi Dushidres, Yemi Juse Carresana, de Batan, Kansonji, de Batan, and Marie Batan Ajeselos. This to Nemo Batanji Job Toata with water, Tanda the Hidden. The Dala Mandeva Riu, Siba Dobe, the Datan Trayu, JB Hiji, Dun Yu Wangi, Chwala Taba Majuma Hinosa, and the Shakala Madu Tag Marikabi, who responded that. Siba Dobe, the Datan Trayu. JB, the judge we Egypt Wasa. That was Shisuna, Kamata, Pamata, Tender, Trubata, Tender, and Sam Majiba Dunurista. Majiba Dunuris, don't you Choa La Traba Majuma, Hinosa. She is a Gabuyungure, Dragumare, Tobayumar, what is on the No doubt, okay. So now we've, Lama Tsongkhapa has presented points, and then quoted the Indian sources, the Indian pandits found in the authentic Indian commentaries in the Jataka Mala, Garland of Birth Stories, as well as Gopal Pal's Garland of Birth Stories, Arya Shura, as well as Aryadeva's 400 verses, and then Lama Tsongkhapa is going to comment on, summarize all the comments, basically, of those two sources, his source and the Indian sources. So then it says, thus. So when you when you contemplate, so it's a carrying on from his points and the Indian points. So he's saying in summary, or you can also say because, but it doesn't make sense in English, but it could translate it as because. So when you contemplate impermanence again and again, you think, I will undoubtedly separate from my body and resources soon. And you stop the craving that hopes not to leave them. Consequently, you will not fear death out of the distress of leaving. Okay, so by meditating on impermanence again and again, by meditating upon the nature of a person, the nature is that a person dies. By having this at the forefront of one's mind, that one will die, then the craving that believes that one won't die, that as a result of it is attached to resources and attached to family and attached to loved ones, subsides. Because one recognizes that there's no way out, there is no way out of death. There's no possibility that one could not leave them. Leave them meaning what? Them referring to one's house, one's car, one's resources, one's enjoyments. So there's no possibility of getting out of death. So by realizing this to be the nature of a being, which is brought out by meditating on impermanence again and again here. So once one meditates on impermanence again and again, one recognizes the nature of a being is to die. One recognizes that there's no way out of death, so craving for things, craving that hopes that one won't have to leave these things subsides because it's not a real reality. One will leave them. So then, consequently, you will not fear death out of the distress of leaving. So it serves as an antidote to that one specific negativity. The distress of having to leave these things is relieved because there's no way around it. There's nothing that can be done about it. One will 100% have to leave these things behind. So once one recognizes this, it's not the word freeing, but it allows one to not have this distress or this fear because of the awareness, because of the knowledge that comes from meditating upon impermanence and death. I think I have everything. So resources soon. Decent.
Okay.
So that is why when we previously we heard that the meditation upon impermanence is the highest among all ideas, and that it gets rid of the attachment, ignorance, and pride of the three realms of cyclic existence. So it is like the hammer that instantly destroys the all afflictions and wrongdoing. So here we quoted that we quoted the final Nirvana Sutra, where we found that it is the highest of all ideas, the supreme idea, and then found how it was the hammer that destroys all negativity and wrongdoing. So here, meditation upon impermanence and death allows one not to fear death out of distress of leaving.
gombi lo chetabe jeba de saji mudwa ta chewa damba gombi sudla wa de saji kashi udwa chewa damba cheta gomba ne sa zawa sung jusen go ta cheba naba sung ji kune gomba shawo sa ta jeba de wa de zawa sung jusen go ta cheba saji sung do
this shitty abudu.
yeah.
So we've gone through there are four categories in this section. First is the downfalls of not cultivating the mindfulness of death, and we found there are 6 points that are made there. Next is the benefits of cultivating mindfulness of death. There are 3 points that were made. The next is the actual way. It's not. Let me give you the exact. The kind of mindfulness of death that you should develop. The right kind of mindfulness of death. There weren't any numbers of points in that. And then the fourth is the how to cultivate mindfulness of death. And then in this we find that there are 3 root points that are made, and then there are 9 reasons that are going to be brought forth. So there are the 3 root points and then 9 points among those. And just a translator's note, sometimes I believe this is called the 9-step death meditation that you sometimes translate it as. So that's the section we're getting into. This shiri abudu. Hey lo mambo de lo de go.
College go ta. Ta chwa de ba go jiba tra. Chawadamba cheda gomba chawadamba cheda gombi tsudle ta saji sondo zawa song jusen go ta jeba song saji ta saji nam song ma de song zawa song jusen go ta jeba song ji
ta jeba rinpoche ta jeba
sena te ma de ta
jeba.
Tawa jetan juba chutan chudruwa la kumbi ten tanga su nye diyo rwa. Tawa ngozwa sa yada marwa. Kumbi ten nye yuwa zang na su chudruwa ta je wuris. Chudruwa ta je wuris. Ta je wada marwa. Ta je ba si. Tane ta je ba sung rwa da. Chi si chu ma du kanki jamba penpa ta je ba. Chudruwa ba ta je ba. Sendal rugo ba peche song yin shire ta je ba song ul le ga ta ma le mar ba ta zawa song de mar ba zawa song de nga ba chewa sam ba zawa ji ta zawa dong ba ji na che la nga ba nga me sam ba zawa ni ba ji chi chue ma du ji gang ge je me pe sam ba zawa song ba de mar ba zawa song ta zawa re ju sen song ko yin shire Zawaril tanga da song song tribu de sen. Tanga da song song druba yinzang, and zawa song de tanga da song song druba yinzang, and jusen gos. Ding sarbe. Ulum peje yin sarbe. Jusen gos. Then ta jeba song du chu druba ta jeba, sandal druba ta jeba. And chuma to kangi jama pemba ta je. Ulum mamudu. Ulma kalile ngorwa.
Okay, so here we have, in this 4th section of how to cultivate mindfulness of death, we find the 3 root points. And the first point is that death is certain. The second point is that the time of death is uncertain. And the third is at the time of death, nothing helps except religious practice. So these are the 3 main points that are made, and each of these 3 points have 3 reasons that are given. So this makes for a total of 9 reasons. And then there are 3 more somethings. I don't know how the word that it translates as, and Rinpoche says we'll get into it later. So instead of wasting time, we'll get into it later. There's going to be 3 other points besides the 3 reasons. And I think it's about application, but I don't want to say that. When we get there, it'll make more sense. So I apologize for not having the third 3, what the name of those are. Okay.
와 드네스도 다 자송도 쇼스나 내가 쳐와서 봤지 말ပဲ내가 쳐와서 넘지 나처럼 내가 매바도 자니 바지 치즈 추마도 관계 좀 매번 봤대 자송도 말ပဲ네 가서 자송 바지 내가 쳐와서 봤어 세자 신제들라 내가 신을 그러지 말ပဲ제자 신제들 내가 시그레스 제자 신제를 내가 시그레스로 지금 그 세계 그걸로 시그를 마도 마시게 되게 요즘 말보다 다 들래 안내 이슈바서 갈라 그래 힌두서 갈라 그래 조시 갈라 그래 줄로 현다서 갈라 그래 지금 가자 그걸로 신는 것도 말이야 신는 것도 대 이슈바서 줄로 현다 갈라 그랬어
Lessa.
이슈바서 그 제사 신는 그랬어 될 다가시고도 하이서 버스가 아유 산타노다 이슈바스트 산타노 힌두다 조시도 가산타노 다 남바게 제자 신제들 시그레스 가르선 땅다 송고 말베 땅다 송고 동도 땅다 송고 동도 남베 어디 송고도 어디 갈래 고지 라잖아
So the first part is of the cultivating the mindfulness of death. Oh, that's so funny. It's right here, by the way. It's called the 3 decisions. It's right in the text. I just wasn't looking at the text. So 3 roots, 9 reasons, and 3 decisions. The indicate that you're so the 3 roots refer to the death is certain, the time of death is uncertain, and at the time of death, nothing helps except religious practice. So the first category, that death is certain, is that all sentient beings will necessarily die. So we can then analyze this according to our tradition. This is the what our tradition says. And then we look at what other religious traditions say as well. We can look at what the Hindu, Christian tradition says. We can look at what the Hindu tradition says. We can look at what the Jewish tradition says. And we can really analyze this and compare it to these other religions' assertions, because in some of these other traditions we find the creator God theory. So then we have to think about, does that mean that all sentient beings die or not? So then we can compare and contemplate this, but in Buddhism we state that all sentient beings necessarily die, that death is certain. So then there are 3 signs or perfect reasons that are given to show this, that death is certain. Danda sum lama sum yene ewa sum la sum.
다 체리바 갈라 그랬어
So what does science say?
제사 신제들 신을 그러다
Does it say everyone dies?
제사 이제 마시게지 요서 체리바 나오지 말고
Is there someone who has avoided death that science has found? Is science found someone who has avoided death?
다 제사 그걸로 제사 신제를 신을 그래서 체리바 나오고 그러다
So I think science would say that everyone dies.
가르치는 제사 신제 가르치듯이 그 주세 체리바 갈라 그랬어
So what does science say? Why does science say everyone dies? What is their, why do they say?
체리바들 지체고도다 제사 저와 그걸로 신을 그래서
So all those that are born die.
지게 그걸로 가르치듯이 버렸어 체리바를 디바이나 체리바 갈라 그랬어
Why do they die? So then what does science say? What's the reason? If science says that which is born dies, why do they die? So what does science say? Rinpoche is just doing comparisons, translators note. Why? Well, we have to look at at everything, just a translator's note, at all possibilities.
다 체리 시험에
I don't understand science.
다 체리발 디바이나 체리바 갈라고 나고만
So without being taught science, I don't know what science says.
다 체리바 찐네 심은 거 봐지 체리바서 투르서 투고 말했어
So there's no way, though, it seems, for science to make immortality, like someone not die, an immortal. And science has so much ability and power. Airplanes, trains. So much. So what would science say about this? Death is certain.
So
why does Buddhism says that death is certain? Why? There's 3 points that are given to prove the certainty of death. The Tambo Jutsun Tambo. Less so.
Akasa cheda ngaba wonla deyang jenje dudu meba sambas jusen tam marbe jusen chi cheda ngaba yongore se jenje dudu mares cheda ngaba wonla jenje dudu mebe jer ngaba shegres jusen chi gogoro da le jenda shi lanjang chewa wontes le kare jina ba yinaya ne show yongores me le lenanda na sungu le lenanda lai le ba kare le ba ina ngaba che yesher ane ngaba chigre sirwa le jenda shi la jang chewa wonte sa le kan la jenda chewa wonte seda ngaba wala jenji dudu me ba samba le jenda shi la jang chewa wonte mutab 다치와 간데지나 바이나야 근데 내가 책을했어 총레스 다 총로도 말이야 총레 가야 사제나지에 퇴장 부글런드는 본제나 주배가 편식구스 안스 테메 다좀바다 네트 다좀바다 안네 샤추선바다 와도서 근갈로드네 공간을 꾸냐는데 취된사버스 나간데 비추된 잡으래 아는 가서 마실 가는 데그레스 어디서도 거기 말বে 총을 땡지로 가 사제 아는 주 사제 셔야 돼요 말데 사제 고냥을 비추된 잡으레스 고냥을 자주를 데도 고냥을 비추된 거로다
belong
네 어디 저 동 말베다 가 사제는 사제로 가야 사제 사제 고냥을 뒤에 된사버래 사제서 신도 거래 네트도 신도 거래 네트 나자 네트 나자 굴런데는 본제 나스 도수가 굴러보는 고냥을 대사도 왔어 주 배반 해주고 주 배반서 쇼를 계속 줄여 말했어 내가 신도 그랬어
맞아요
what 주세 되는 가서 르전다 신랑장 cheda yungures what 총고는 드라마르베 sheso
맞아요
가도 대장 저와 원데스 내 가봐 대바 이나야 사tul 대바 이나 신도 그래 사울 되네 신도 그래 자수 나로 되네 신도 그래 아니 가봐 대바 이나 시그레스 내 가도 대장 저와 원네 되니레스 총인서 총 가도 내나 제무수비 사주드는 여보 많이 돼 바나라메 바날 되네 신도 그래 ane jatsu nal dena shendagare ane ruo na je sido shunao means rena machil de ba ina ane mashaba de tu shendagare
tambo nanka
sheson so sa
tambo de jatsu nanka okay to chena
yeah sheso sa what about jidjan
okay so then all right. So the first category, the contemplation that death is certain. So we're in that category. So then the certainty of death has three aspects, or three correct signs or reasons. First is the Lord of Death will definitely come, and therefore cannot be avoided. Second, our lifetime cannot be extended and constantly diminishes. And third, while you are alive, there is little time for religious practice. So those are the three categories. And then the first category, which is the contemplation that the Lord of Death will definitely come and therefore cannot be avoided. begins with a quote, and it says, before the quote, no matter what kind of body you assume at birth, death comes. So there's a quote from the collection of indicative verses, and it says, if all the Buddhas and their Prachika Buddha and Shravaka disciples left their bodies, what can be said about ordinary beings? And then it says, no matter where you stay, death comes. The same text says, somewhere to live that is unharmed by death, such a place does not exist. It does not exist in space, it does not exist in the sea, nor if you stay in the midst of the mountains. So here, this first quote is saying that there is no way to escape leaving this world. There is no way of escaping death. If even the Buddhas and the Prachika Buddhas, Shravakas, who passed into the Buddhas into Buddhahood, and the Shravakas, and here meaning solitary realizers and hearers. So here we're speaking of the three yanas, the Buddhas, the solitary realizers, and the hearers, so the three vehicles. So if all of those who have been liberated in those three vehicles have left this world, have left their bodies, what need is there to say about us leaving our bodies, about us dying? So we have to know that death is certain. So here is the first reason that's given, supported by this quote. And then it says, no matter where you stay, death comes. If you live in the ocean, if you live on the ground, if you live under the ground, if you live in the sky, it doesn't matter where you live, death is certain. So here it says, somewhere to live that is unharmed by death, such a place does not exist. It does not exist in space, it does not exist in the sea, nor if you stay in the midst of the mountains. So no matter where you are, if you are born, you will necessarily die. And it says this place that you can live that's will keep you free from death, where death is not certain, doesn't exist. And then it gives all of the examples that it doesn't exist in the space, in the sea, or in the midst of mountains. And the Rinpoche gave the examples of if something lives under the ground and is born, it dies. If something is on the ground and born, it dies. If something all the things in the ocean are born and die, and the things that live in the sky are born and die. So that is the complete commentary to that point. Yes. Please. Yes. Rinpoche mentioned Bodhisattva passed as well from this world. One word I forgot.
다 담보 가서 그걸 내가 쳐와 말이야. 내가 쳐와들 다 주생 거도 말이야. 손레스 체다 내가 온라 젠지 도도 매반네스 체다 내가 용 그래서 다 체다 장 아주 가자 가서 제자발에 달란지된 송아 다 체다 되지 레던 요모발 자고 그런 송송아 근데 체다 가리 있었다 체다 그 뒤세야지 다 체다서 니 가가자고 그래서 가래 체다 내가 온라 쳐와도 내가 용 그래서 체다 내가 용 그래서 쳐 내가 용 그래서 다 쳐와도 가다 내가 용 그래서 봐 내가 용데 안에 제가 내가 온라 젠지 도도면 봐 제가 내가 용 그래 쳐와도 내가 용 그래 안에 마시바진 제 관계도 도토 말에 팽도 도토 말에 하고 도토 말에서 봐 젠지 도도면 봐 상반에 상반에서 르젠다 신랑장 저원데서 르간데 진라바이나 메일 람바이난다 하일 람바이난다 아는 내송 람바이난다 아는 내가도 저원 용그레스 마다비 총래 관 산지 라산지 산지 고냥 산지 셔야 돼요 말인데 산지 고냥을 대비 수된서 받았어 라산지 쇼요로다 관 산지 라산지 산지 나지 녀퇴장 녀퇴로 쇼가르바
Yes.
콜로도 본제나 혼자야 고냥을 다 선도스 안에 예수기 제제 셰사마르바 제제 시버서 그러고 제제 시버서 손지 고냥을 대서 버려 근데 나서 마시는 가봐 되겠어 어두시 인서르바
The Rinpoche, the Ranjel dan yentu shiwa yure yene sanje yomare.
손지 시버서
Okay, tuchen.
체다그 뒤 좀비해서
Okay.
치면 시윤에 돌아 치두 조아 메베시레 셰 두지 좀바 주구연된 송베
Chuku.
저 샤망원베 줄라마 말베
Okay.
네 사지그 두지 좀바레 체다그 두지 좀사버레스 체다그 두지 좀사도 사질 치고요 말거든요 치고요 말레스 두지 좀바데 주구연된레스 주 이제 주고도 원이 무슨 말베 사지 치고요 말에 안 되는 사지 치송도스나 치 취된 말레스 주 Similar.
Okay. So here, where it says, no matter what kind of body you assume at birth, death comes. So if you assume the body of a human being, death will necessarily come. If you assume the body of a god, death will come. If you assume the body of a lower realm being, death will come because of the impermanence of death, because that those things that are born die. We can even look at the example of other religious tradition. Look at Jesus. Jesus is no longer with us in this world. Jesus was separated from the body. So Jesus is no longer in this world. So we can find all of these examples of beings who leave this world and leave their bodies. And looking at the case of the Buddha doesn't necessarily die. We would say that the Buddha has a facsimile or something similar to death because the Buddha has abandoned the Lord of Death completely on the path. He or she transforms life into the Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya of the wisdom truth body and the nature truth body. So that it would be similar to death, the passing from this life into nirvana, but it wouldn't be called that. Whereas in the solitary realizer vehicle and the hearer vehicle, there is the word death can be used. And translators note there might be more to it, but this is all the information that I was given. So there might be, there is a death within the solitary realizers and hearer that take place, but not the Buddha. And there's a quote from the Uttara Tantra that Rinpoche gave that I'm not going to be able to probably come up with right away, but it's probably in the Dharmakaya section. Having offered bodies, lives. Yeah, it's going to take me too long. Free from Dharma. I'm in the section. I know where it is too. Anyway, in Maitreya's Uttara Tantra, you can find the quote, and it will speak of Buddha not dying because of having abandoned the Lord of Death and transforming into the Dharmakaya. So it's in the Uttara Tantra, but I don't have time to look. It's a long text, so I don't have time to get into that. So all of these beings are subject to this impermanence and have left their bodies. So why not us too? So it says no matter where you stay, death comes, no matter where you are. So previously when we talked about, there's a Tibetan word in Chiwa, Chitta, in here, and Rinpoche was going over like the Lord of Death versus death itself, and saying that in Arya-Deva's 400, in Arya-Deva's text, it speaks of the Lord of Death being the karma and afflictions, the origin of suffering. So death itself is just dying. The Lord of Death is specific to those karma and the afflictions. So it's just looking at the different words that are used in here, where there's a Lord of Death word and then there's a death word, and they're very similar in the Tibetan in here. So just showing the differences a little bit, slight difference in the word itself.
시다만도 받아서 베지 상제되네 도지되는 상사지 버렸어. 사주종 고냥을 돼 버렸어. 셔르스 라고로 그죠.
So in the Great Exposition School and the Sutrantika School, where there is the belief that Buddha achieved enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodhigaya, there is a death, the word death, where being used for the passing into nirvana that Buddha did is okay in those tenet systems.
Because kanalleshi deshiga chawataji mama shawa chobajis and chugu tribu ko nyangalende go to reba juche bande beje chugu tribu ko shaja to bata bata 시우도 안에 포멍가 준시를 마음시와 나지레스 바틀렌 세븐나지 시다만도 버서 로거 그래서
So the Great Exposition School and the Sutra School speak of there's a quote Rinpoche quoted, and I apologize, I'm not going to be able to recite it perfect, but that speaks of the passing out of the aggregates of the Buddha Shakyamuni into nirvana is a death process, is a death just as the fire from a butter lamp is blown out and dies. So it's leaving the aggregates, Buddha Shakyamuni did, is the same as the fire leaving the butter lamp flame when it's blown out. So the Great Exposition School and Satrantika School state this. There's a lot of debate among the four tenet systems about this point. Because the Buddha, it says, because the Buddha has the excellent qualities of the Dharmakaya, he or she does not die because the Lord of Death is conquered before that. So the Lord of Death is conquered before their leaving. So it's not called a death because it's not brought on by the Lord of Death. So it's because it's conquered, and there's already a transformation that's taken place into the Dharmakaya. This is according to the Middle Way school, the Middle Way view, the Madhyamika view. Because the transformation has taken place into the Dharmakaya, the word death is not appropriate, or it's not used. Because the Lord of Death is already conquered. So that's the best of my ability.
So in
the 12 miraculous deeds, we find one of the miraculous deeds being the passing. So this is the point that we're speaking of. The miraculous showing of nirvana. So it would say that it is not a passing into nirvana because there's already been a conquering of the Lord of Death prior to that time. So there wouldn't be considered a passing. Then kon nyanyen le deba nyomare. So there isn't a dying into nirvana. So it just is that word of death that is the problem within the Buddha. And I think I've explained it. I hope clear enough. So it's like an emanation of dying, a facsimile of it, showing a death, but it isn't a real death. So it's the Buddha. So it's like a showing of a death. This is very loose, and I've heard it translated this way, like the movie of it. It's like the showing of it. So. So if the Buddha didn't show this passing, then the grasping at permanence could be enhanced, because someone would say there is no dying, not everyone passes. So the Buddha showed us the process of passing, but because it was him showing, it wasn't a real death. It wasn't a real death. It was a show of it. I don't know how to translate that in any. I think it's clear. I just would like a better way of saying it. Show. It's putting on a show. Think so. So then Jesus, in the Christian tradition, died and then raised from the dead. and this is similar maybe to an emanation or something that Jesus is past, but he's rising to the dead, so he's not dead. So it was like an emanation, like a show of a death. So maybe similar. Buddha is maybe similar. So there's so much to think about, so many things to think about. So just to make it clear, and then I'm going to put it in very simple terms, the Buddha, according to the Madhyamaka school, put on a show that looked like death so that people would understand that the nature of a being is to die. But he really wasn't dying, he was just emanating a death, but it wasn't a real death because he had already transcended the Lord of Death. Okay. So in the lower systems, the great expositions of Trantika, they state that he achieved nirvana and Bodhagaya under the Bodhi tree, and then passed into nirvana and dispelled the faulty aggregates. That the aggregates were faulty, and got rid of the faulty aggregates in the way that a butter lamp blows out. So the lower schools feel that he did achieve enlightenment. And a translator's note, the higher schools feel that enlightenment was achieved many lifetimes ago. The entire life of Buddha Shakyamuni was a show. So just as a translator's note, that's the Mahayana Madhyamaka view, is that there was already enlightenment there. So in the lower schools, there's a belief. That's why, if you don't know that background, this statement doesn't make sense. In the lower schools, there's a belief that nirvana was achieved under the tree at that time, and then he passed into nirvana and got rid of the faulty aggregates during that lifetime as Shakyamuni, previously as Siddhartha as a prince. So then in the future, we can slowly just go around this again and again. Ripa Juba. So I myself don't have a very good intelligence. I'm not very smart. So by going over it and over it again, it helps me to understand it better. I say it. So if I say this a lot, I say these so many things, then more is learned. The karma niyure. So we have, if anybody has any questions, we have only a couple of minutes, and then I'll make an announcement, and then we'll close. So if anybody just has a quick question, we have a minute and 15 seconds. Yes? Hold on.
Sorry, is there a difference within the Madhyamika, like the autonomy school and the Prasangika school? Is there a difference in how they view the passing?
The Umatenjira dan Ranju, the Nietzsche, the Gaitsang dan Sanje Shire Shimare Ranje.
Raju bata Oma Tanju warwa.
Uma.
Kunja peche injere.
Both.
Peche judishena yoro. Te inje tulu yomara. Peche sona tabi. Judishena. Wotan olo tere mungu yore.
So they have the same view that there isn't a dying. And in the overview of Buddhist Tantra by Panchen Sonan Drapo, you'll find information about that. And in the Kirtrup J's text on the 4 classes of Tantra, we find a lot of information about this as well. And in the Perfection of Wisdom teachings, we find a great amount of this information.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe that is enough. And again, just to remind everyone, and we can dedicate the virtue of all this happening too at the end, is that on the first Tuesday of every month, Rinpoche is going to begin teaching The Source of All My Good, which is a short poem by Lama Tsongkhapa that is in our prayer book, that is a summary of this all of this material in a few verses. So it's a summary of the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. So this short poem condenses all of the teachings of Buddhism. Rinpoche has chosen to use a very famous, beautiful commentary by the glorious Pabonka Rinpoche, who is a great Lamrim master. It has a very short, clear commentary on it, and we will be giving everyone who comes to the teaching a book. There's no suggested donation. Obviously, we are run by donations, but someone has been generous and decided to donate books to everyone. So there is an English translation of this commentary, so everyone who comes to the class will get a book for free. So I just wanted to make those two announcements. And Dr. Artemis Engel, who is one of the greatest living scholars, who is a Westerner, just like Jeffrey Hopkins, Thupten Jinpa, same level of scholarship, and especially relative to the Lamrim and especially Pabonka Rinpoche's teachings, I've been in contact with, and he's given us full permission to use this book on the video so we can have it online. There won't be any issues whatsoever about using this information, and he's encouraging all the students to use it for whatever will be helpful for our class, and also as a resource for consultation if we need help, because he is one of the greatest living scholars on this material. So we have some exciting stuff coming up, and it just shows again that when we have this purity of Dharma, it attracts other pure Dharma, and all the doors just open right up. So we're excited that we got permission within 48 hours to do this, and it just shows the Dharma generosity. And just as a side note, just to show the generosity, yes, they were all donated, but the organization itself, because it's a Dharma teaching, gave the 40% off every book. So everyone's working together to make sure Dharma gets here. So the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer.
When's the one-day vow going to be?
That is on June 4th at 5 a.m., which is Sakadawa, the celebration of Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing into nirvana whenever you feel that happened. So the celebration of that on that day, and we'll have the Mahayana one-day vows at 5 a.m., and then that evening we'll be doing a Guru Puja in celebration of receiving these wonderful texts by Lama Tsongkhapa and his spiritual sons, Kirchup Je and Joseph Je, as well as some of the textbooks by Panchen Sonandrapa and other textbook writers of Losang Monastery that we have now here. So we have all the information we could ever need to get enlightened here, right behind us, and it's very amazing, and we're blessed to have someone who knows what it all means to explain it, because we would be lost without that. So thank you, and thank you, Rinpoche, for continuing to teach us the pure Dharma. Concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri, and likewise Samantabhadra as well. Whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land, surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, a spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche Gutsi Shapi Denronam, Matsu Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Chironam.
Okay, yeah.
Sheda Sobulu.